Welcome to our tips and tricks and hints about hurricane disaster prep with our experts from the Community Association Resource Group, all fully vetted and here to help you in any way possible. And what I'm going to do now today, we have one of our members of the group as moderator, the president and founder of AccountSalt, Mr. Mark Buckhalter. Mark, I am turning the reins over to you. Take it away.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for participating. Because we have a hurricane coming up, our group, which is a Community Association Resource Group, or CARG, puts on various seminars, educational discussions for the benefit really of the community association arena for property managers and board members, and also unit owners, obviously. With that said, today's topic basically is going to be centering around really hurricanes, because it's fastly approaching us. Hopefully we can go ahead and prepare and never need the services, but it's always better to be prepared than not. So with that, I'm going to start introducing just some of the people that are in our group. Everybody's been vetted. They've all been with the group for some time. And they're actually very well known in the community association field. So with that, we're going to start really with professional building services with Craig Sassner. And Craig, I think you're there. I'm not sure if you're muted yet.
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, how are you? So
fine, thanks. How are you today?
Good, thank you. So we have a few questions that came in with the janitorial, and I know you don't do just janitorial, you also do like maintenance and all. And obviously with the storms coming up, and if a storm hits, obviously your services are always needed, but more importantly, we're really looking to just give advice really at this point in time to the property managers and board members on what we should be doing in preparation really for hurricanes that are coming up right now.
Sure. What we use as a template, obviously living in South Florida, this is a yearly occurrence. And the most important thing is to secure the common areas, whether it be the pool, lobbies, exterior lobbies, that type of thing, to try and eliminate any of the debris from flying around. Working in conjunction with the landscape company, hopefully Charles's company, about cutting back trees, that type of thing. We're just trying to alleviate some potential threats as the winds start to pick up.
Okay, terrific. And let me ask you this. A lot of times a hurricane hits, we have a lot of damage, and this really applies to, I guess, a lot of the other disciplines here, whether it's landscaping, whether it's you. People will call you and go ahead and say, we need help. Obviously, I know most landscapers take care of their clients first, and then it's on a first come, first served basis. How do you handle, random calls that come in as far as lead time and so forth?
Well, obviously our first loyalty is to our existing customers, but in this type of situation, we will do our best to assess the situation at hand and move forward with our recommendation as to what needs to be done, whether it's clean up, clean out, or having to call in mold remediation people, handyman type services to repair things, window companies, that type of thing. Building new relationships is important. Small calls for little things, can turn into big things down the road. And that's why I think we've been in business as long as we have. We are celebrating our 40th year in business in South Florida. And we just try and treat everybody with respect and fairness.
I thought you were only 21.
Allegedly.
Okay. Well,
he started when he was 10. So
right.
Exactly.
If we can go on to landscaping, Charles, can you?
I'm here. Good morning.
Okay, great. Obviously, I remember way back when, whether it was Andrew or Wilmer and all, when we had, I know in my community, we had a tremendous amount of debris, from the trees and all. One of the questions from one of the members went ahead and said, what should we do as far as tree trimming. Okay,
Well-
everybody talks about tree trimming with minor cuts and major cuts, and one year you do a minor, one year you do a major cut. Can you go ahead and explain to us, the tree trimming process, especially as it relates to hurricanes?
Okay, well, as we all know, hurricane season is right around the corner, and we have been busy since April with our existing clients, telling them, please don't wait till June when hurricane season starts. Start as soon as you can, because the longer you wait, the busier all tree trimming companies become. So if to get you on the schedule, it's important to start as soon as possible to get all of the trees trimmed with what we call a class 2 pre-hurricane trimming. And what that basically means is that all of your hardwoods, the crew will go up through the trunk of the tree, through the center of the tree, and clear out all of the dead wood, remove any cross limbs so that air can flow clearly from the bottom of the tree up through the canopy of the tree and out. So that needs to be cleaned out, so that air can flow. Palm trees is another important factor. Don't over trim the palm trees or ask the crew to over trim them. We trim them according to ASA standards, which is 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock. And any over trimming, even if you went up to 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock, if you can imagine a clock, what it would look like, it's too high. So removing good, healthy palm fronds is not a good idea. Leave them there. Of course, the coconuts need to be removed because they are projectiles and should be removed well in advance of any storm coming.
With that said, with a lot of cleanup, and again, I'm really relating it to when we had a major storm in my community. We had it was probably about $100,000 or $150,000 worth of cleanup, just of landscaping. I'm really gonna look to Center State, which is now coming into South State, Terry Russo. One of the questions that we had is, if we don't have the money to clean up, okay, how fast can we get some money from the bank?
Well, how fast? Once the storm hits, it's not going to be very fast. It's going to be looking for loans. I always suggest to my associations to apply for a line of credit ahead of time so that it's a normal approval process. Normal approval process, probably 3 to 4 weeks. If you wait until after the fact, it could take a couple of months. But the line of credit will get you through whatever deductible money you need, whatever you need to get the tree out of the driveway, the tree off the clubhouse, those kind of things. If you don't have the money in reserves or in your operating fund, you can always use the line of credit for those challenges, so to speak.
Okay, well, Terry, let me ask you this, as an accountant that does the monthly accounting for associations, I usually always try to promote the banks to offer a contingency line of credit versus a specific line for a special assessment, let's say, for if you're doing just a roof or you're doing the pool.
Right.
So this would be a separate, correct me if I'm wrong, this is a separate facility that would be almost what I call a contingency line of credit that you can use. And what things can you use it for?
No, the line of credit would be put in place for, it would encompass a lot of different things. We could put it in for community improvements, repairs, hurricane damages, emergencies, insurance deductibles, and any other items as the association deems necessary. And that would be the purpose of the line. So if I get an invoice that says, we had the landscaping company come out because we needed to have a tree removed, I'm going to have that invoice. I'm going to put that money into their account so that they can pay that invoice.
Okay. So
everything is pretty much encompassed in the purpose so that they can really use it for anything.
Okay, so, and that leads me to another question. A lot of clients of mine go ahead and say they're afraid almost to take out a contingency line of credit because they're afraid that when they're not on the board may go ahead and use it for things that really are not really necessary. So are there safeguards or the loan documents, can they be written up for contingency, reasons such as catastrophes or
they can write yes, Mark, they can write the purpose however they choose. And it will be monitored that way, but the bank's not going to just advance funds for anything. They're still, look for an invoice, a contract, and we're gonna take the money from the line and put it in their checking account. And then they have to get the money out of their checking account to pay their contractors. So I would think there's also double, the two board members of people approving the invoices. So the board's gonna be involved if there's an invoice involved.
Oh, okay. And there's one other question here, which is gonna also lead into insurance. As far as, with everything coming up, and I know that Brandon is probably chomping at the bit to talk about all the high premiums that are coming up.
Yep, they
Well,
are.
Again, what I usually suggest to my clients, okay, to go ahead and to minimize the insurance cost or the premium sometimes is going ahead and changing a deductible, going from 1%, 2% up to 5%. But obviously, if a hurricane hits, you need to have that 5% available. So I know that the bank also goes ahead and has almost like lines of credit specifically for insurance deductibles.
The line of credit that we would be put in place would cover that as well. They only need one, they don't need multiple. So in other words, if they came to me and said, Terry, we need a $500,000 line of credit and we need it just in case we have a hurricane, our insurance deductible, community improvement, that's what the purpose is going to say in the documents so that they are covered all the way around. So, because if it's restricted to say community improvements, and then they want to use it for the insurance deductible, I can't use this community improvements loan for insurance deductible purposes to clean up property after a hurricane.
Okay, so it is important.
We try to encompass it all in the same loan.
Right. So when we do the loan application, I know when I fill it out for my clients, I try to put in, maybe I shouldn't be telling you as the banker, but I try to put in as much as I can so that I can use that line of credit for various purposes.
That is
So-
correct.
so
I
what you're
look for
saying is
that.
It's best to put in the whole kitchen sink,
That's right.
at the beginning, then ask later.
That is correct.
Okay.
I look for that and I always go back to them. If they only put hurricane damages, I always go back. Are you sure that's the only thing you want to use it for? What if something happens, you need a sewer line or, you need to get your hands on things like that? That's community improvements and repairs. So it falls under category.
Okay, great. I appreciate that.
Right.
Mark,
And
I
that-
just
and
want
that's-
to interject. If anybody has any questions along the way, feel free, again, for anybody just joining us and didn't hear the explanations earlier, raise your hand and we can enable your mic to ask a question based on what you might have just heard, or type in your questions to the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen. And one of the questions that I got emailed to me based on what Terry just mentioned and Mark touched upon with insurance, for anybody that's new here, new to the community association industry in our audience, maybe they don't know what's covered and what's not covered typically by a policy with disaster recovery. Like for instance, will insurance cover debris removal?
Right, and that's why I was going to just do a segue really into Legacy Insurance, Brandon Levy.
You got it.
Talking about as far as, and then, you're going to have a lot to talk about because of the nature of your business. But
Right.
what Terry was saying as far as having an insurance deductible, okay, and when I was mentioning
Line of credit.
yeah, because what we find, at least what I find from an accounting standpoint, is that the communities can go ahead and save money on a yearly basis, going from, let's say, a 2% to a 5% deductible. But again, they have to understand that that extra 3% has to come from someplace. Okay, so it's either going to come from monies that they have stored up in their bank accounts or lines of credit. So maybe you can just start off at least with that and also talk about, because we're getting a lot of questions, why is my insurance going up so high right now?
Right. Well, yeah. Hi, everybody. So to discuss the second part first, why are insurance rates going up so ridiculously high so quickly? And I've been in the insurance industry for 20 years, and I haven't seen rates go up this fast ever. There's a multitude of factors. The two main factors are, number one, there is way too much fraud in South Florida. So what is ending up happening is that a normal claim, let's just say there's a water damage claim, where a normal claim would cost the insurance company $5,000 or $10,000 they would pay out, because of all the fraudulent activity with respect to either the contractors or the attorneys involved, or even the adjusters involved. Those normal $10,000 losses are now all of a sudden $100,000, $150,000. So when you take that and multiply that by hundreds and hundreds of buildings, the insurance companies end up losing money in South Florida, which is crazy to say, but that's what ends up happening. So as a result of that happening, less and less insurance companies want to write insurance in South Florida. So therefore, supply goes down. As a result of that, in addition to that, the cost for insurance companies to buy their own insurance, which is called reinsurance, has gone up. So when insurance companies have to spend more money to buy their own insurance, that's a problem, because that trickles down to the consumer. So not only does the insurance company's cost go up, and then you take fraud into consideration, that ends up having less insurance companies want to write in South Florida. And as a result of those two factors, premiums go up very quickly. So that's basically what is happening in South Florida. So as a result of that, and knowing that insurance is normally the largest budget item for all associations, the boards have to make really big decisions on what type of deductibles they want to have, because rates are going up. So you have to take on more risk to keep your premiums lower. So that's where you have to look at different deductible options, which there are many different deductible options. There are hurricane deductible options. There are named storm deductible options. There are 2%, 3%, 5%, 10%. So if you choose to go at a higher deductible, you're taking on a lot more risk for the unit owners, which most of the time the unit owners don't have that readily available in their own funds, and the association doesn't have that readily reserved. So then that's how you go back to making a decision on, well, listen, we need to be proactively having a line of credit, so that in the event something does happen and we want to take on more risk because insurance premiums are going up so high, we have that money ready to go to basically mitigate our losses quicker. Because when you have the money available to you at the time of the loss, you cannot be taken advantage of by the contractors, where the contractors are now doubling your cost because they know you don't have the money. So there's a lot of different factors that are causing insurance rates to go up, and you need different strategies to, make sure that you're protecting all of the unit owners. I mean, that's basically what's happening in a nutshell.
Okay, and also, a lot of times the clients will go ahead and say, you know what, I'm gonna self-insure. And then I
When you
have
say self-insure,
self-insure, and then I go ahead and I say, I don't think so.
well,
So maybe you
yeah,
can
I mean, I
talk
don't think the banks will. The problem with self-insuring is, number one, I've never seen anybody do it, even though the state statute allows for it. But it opens up too many problems for associations. Number one, if you try to self-insure, then you can't buy or sell a unit inside your association for someone who needs a mortgage, because the mortgage companies won't allow you to close without insurance, right? Then that causes a problem for the directors and officers, because then they can get sued for not adhering to state statute, which is needing to have insurance for your community. So it's not a viable option at all. A better option is to get to have your team composed so that you can sell a narrative to the insurance companies on why your specific risk is a good risk to insure, not at a 50% increase, but at a 10% increase. You explain to them why what risk management tools you have in place, like making sure that the trees are totally cut, making sure that you have a line of credit, making sure that your contractors are already on board so that you can't get screwed at the time of the loss. There's a lot of things that you need to do so that you don't get taken advantage of by the insurance companies, by the contractors, and that the unit owners don't come back and sue you. So you have to have the right team, really, in order to get it all done.
Right. And which leads us really into another area, which would be public adjustment. And we do have an expert right now. We have Catherine from United Claims Specialists. And before, Catherine, I turn it over to you to explain about everything you always wanted to know about public adjusting, but was afraid to ask. I do have to say there were a lot of public adjusters that wanted to get into our resource group. And, you know, public adjusters generally have a bad rap. And that's why for a long, long time, we never had anyone. And then Catherine came along and we met with her. We spoke with her on many occasions before coming into the group. And Catherine, I have to tell you, was just an honest, very, very knowledgeable, adjuster who will fight for you to the nth degree, but on the same token, will do it properly. So I just really wanted to mention that, just because of the field that you're in. But Catherine, so now what happens is that we go ahead and we get a hurricane or some other catastrophe, and they first call up Brandon. Brandon gets a hold of the insurance companies. And now the insurance companies goes ahead and says to the board, okay, we're going to give you $20,000. And you know for a fact that you probably have $200,000 or $300,000. What do we do now? What's the procedure? How we call you up and what happens?
Right. So you should always have, I say, your insurance agent and your adjuster on speed dial. If you have a great adjuster, then they will guide you properly. And I always like to say, if you have a good adjuster, if you contact them from the beginning, then it's better than when you have, let's say, already gotten, submitted some estimates, some contracts, and then maybe your adjuster has to go back and fix what has been said, or maybe a wrong date was used. And there's just terminology that a board, maybe, an HOA, they won't know or say correctly, which may affect the outcome of a claim. So that's the first step. So if you have a trusted adjuster, make sure you call them first and they will guide you through this process. Sometimes it's a really big loss and there is a lot of paperwork, a lot of estimates that need to be written. It'll be a lot of engineering that needs to be sent out to go scope out damages. Last year we had like a record season. So last year there was 30 named storms, 13 hurricanes, 6 of which were considered major, and 12 direct US strikes. So the previous record was 9 direct US strikes, which was in 1916. And so that was the only second time in history that the Greek alphabet was used for tropical storms. So that being said, this season could be very busy. That's what they did predict. And even though there's no storm activity approaching right now, basically what we're covering now is what you should be doing, which is getting together your vendors and knowing who your providers are, get the board with, having who your emergency services are, basically your restoration companies, your roofing companies, pest controls, landscapers, and all of that, already in place. And, I always say, before you file a claim, make sure it's something that's going to make sense. In this case, we're talking about hurricane damage. Most likely it will make sense. So basically, having your policy reviewed from year to year, because it may change and your needs may change, and making sure, like Brandon said, seeing what the various deductibles are and how they apply, and basically communicate that with your board.
Can I just jump in on one thing just to piggyback off that, Mark?
Sure.
One of the things that Catherine just said that is really important, I think, when I'm trying to sell to an insurance company why you shouldn't get a huge increase is having your contractors and your team before something happens. Think about it from an insurance company's perspective. If you can tell an insurance company, hey, listen, ABC Condo has this preferred contractor set already with these preferred rates. The insurance company now knows that in the event of a loss, they're not going to get increased costs because of supply and demand for construction. That type of information that you give to the insurance companies is very important, because insurance companies want to know that, even though it's funny to say, the insurance companies want to know that you care about them not paying claims. That's what you have to sell to them. We care about the insurance company. I know it sounds dumb, but that's the truth. So the more things that you can tell the insurance company that you have proactively done with respect to all the things that we do, the much better it is to get an insurance company. And again, an insurance company, all you're doing is talking to another person, trying to convince another person to give you a good deal. So those things really matter, and it affects every one of the industries in our group.
Right, that is very true. And Catherine, you had mentioned, as far as you should have your insurance and your adjuster, basically plastered right in front of your face, or on speed dial, as you said. The other two industries, really, and we'll have both of them speak, would be Adam from ServPro and Joey from Paul Bain Roofing. So Adam, the question always is, okay, and it's funny, I always remember people handing out little magnet stickers to keep on their refrigerator, so they always had the phone number. When you have a leak, I think probably you're almost the first person to call, you or maybe Joey if it's a roof leak. But if it's another leak, okay, for whatever reason, maybe a pipe burst, okay, you have to mitigate all those damages. Otherwise, it really can create, a real fiasco. So what steps does ServPro do? And I know ServPro is, a national company, and then there's individual franchises. So there's, I guess I should say this, but there's probably good ServPro people and better ServPro people. I know that you're one of the better ones. So what preventative things should we be doing? And if we do have a leak, what happens when we call ServPro? What do you do?
Well, thank you, Mark, for the intro. Yeah, we pride ourselves on being, most ServPro franchises in the area are family oriented, but we are to the extreme. We represent, Broward County. That's where our office locations are currently, but we also go to the Palm Beaches in Miami, wherever our members and visitors of CARG need us. That's where we can go. Basically, when pertaining to hurricanes, the best thing to do is to call, ServPro, call me, call your restoration company ahead of time before a storm comes. Even during a storm, if you stay in the building or monitor the building, if you're a manager, you're a president, a VP, or a board member, it's always good to know about your surroundings and what's going on. Normally, storm surges, whenever there's a hurricane, tropical storm, maybe even a little bit of rain, rain will pull up, and you should know those areas in advance of, where you're likely to have water damages on the first floor, the hallway, etc. If there's no power because the storm comes, there's still things that we can do once the water resides. All the wet material it touches, carpet, drywall, insulation, all that needs to be removed right away. Once you come extract the water, remove 70% of the moisture right away, that will eliminate the amount of mold growth that will happen. It might take weeks to get the power back on to your building. Days to get the power turned back on. All situations are different. We've been in business since the early 2000s, so we've been through quite a few storms. There's also a difference between flood damage, If you have rainwater coming into your unit, that's, obviously a different policy when it pertains to insurance. If you have roof leaks, caused by wind-driven rain, that should fall under a different segment of insurance. So understand what sort of policies you have in place and make sure that all the members from this group are on, your beck and call waiting to go in case something does happen. We also have an emergency ready plan, an ERP we have developed for most of our property managers and board members already, where we know the layout of the structure, we know where the difficult areas of service might be, and we're only one phone call away. Even though we're a smaller franchise, we have a storm team in place where, our 4 vehicles can turn into 40 with the help of other franchises throughout the state of Florida and beyond. But if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask me.
Adam, another question that came up, how fast does mold start to appear or start to grow when you have a problem?
That's a good question. Normally, 72 hours, I would say, is your normal cutoff. If there's no power to a unit or a building, the mold could intensify and increase, because really what you need is air movement on those water damaged areas and water molecules to start drying faster. If there's nothing, stale air, cold, wet environments, those are breeding grounds for mold. I would say, 48 to 72 hours if it's a hurricane related event.
Okay, great. And Joey from Paul Baines Roofing, and Joey, you're muted right now. If you can unmute yourself. I guess
Morning.
Joey, good morning. Usually, the questions come up with roofing is that all of a sudden I have a leak, and they surmise that it's coming from the roof. It may not be, but a lot of times shingles are off or whatever. What should associations do initially at the very beginning to mitigate more serious problems?
Sure. So, obviously when you have the water coming in and after a storm, obviously the first thing we need to do is get out there and exactly what you said, we have to mitigate the damage. So the insurance companies want to see the mitigation done. You have to do something to stop the interior from progressively getting worse. Mitigation is the first thing that we do. Come out there, stop the water at wherever it's coming from. We get our team out there to assess, do what we need to do, and that's the mitigation process of stopping the interior of further damage for the insurer. This also helps with public adjusters, with Kat coming in there behind us saying, hey, XYZ was done 24 hours after the storm, and this is basically helping the claims process when there is an issue with that. Prior to that, and we can get into this more obviously in depth, but the insurance company just doesn't want to see, hey, we have a claim, but this roof was done 15 years ago and there was nothing done prior to. There was no maintenance to the roof. There was literally nothing done. That obviously is a little bit of a challenge when you do have a claim in that aspect.
Okay. And then there was a question about what do people mean about when they say strapping a roof?
Okay.
And what's the benefit of it?
Sure. That's a great question. With the rates, obviously Brandon was talking about the rates going up in the insurance industry as a whole right now. The insurance companies definitely want to see different things done on roofs. We're seeing it more on the residential side, and it's going to the commercial side. It's trickling there. The county rather, Miami-Dade Broward County runs off the same code book, which is the high velocity wind zone. They are looking for strapping, which is where the walls of the house or the structure meet the trusses. Okay, so primarily wood structure or wood trusses rather to meeting concrete block. every house that was built after 1994, I believe, was when Andrew's code changed the whole game down here. Everything is done to code these days, which is a strap that comes out of the concrete block structure, wraps over the top of the truss with 2 nails on the embedment side and 1 nail on the opposing side. That is the standard hurricane. When you hear hurricane straps or roof to wall enhancements, things of the terminology like that, that is what it's pertaining to. Sorry, here there we go. That's what they're pertaining to when it comes to that. Anything valued, not property wise, but building wise, over $300,000 in Miami-Dade and Broward County, it is mandatory that any roof that is put on has that retro done. That is not your, so if you have, let's just say you have a property that is worth $700,000 and the land of that property is worth 500, that home is worth 200,000, or what they say based off of property appraisal is 200,000. That house is not mandatory. It is not mandatory that they do the roof to wall enhancement. If the house, the same $700,000 value, that house is worth 400, property is worth 300, that home is, it's mandatory that we do the roof to wall enhancement on that home.
Okay, terrific. And Brandon, you know, there was a question with what Joey was really saying as far as mitigation. So I, you know, there's such a thing called mitigation reports that, you know, Joey would get involved in, other contractors might get involved in. I think we have somebody that has some background noise, maybe they can mute themselves. Tell us about mitigation reports and how that affects insurance premiums.
Okay, no problem. So mitigation, let's talk about on the commercial side, which is what I know most about, but in essence, it's the same thing for both. So mitigation basically is a form that the insurance companies look at to determine 2 types of credits that you get. One is the roof wall connection credit, or the type of roof that you have, and one is the opening protection credit. Okay. The roof wall connection credit, which is what Joey was kind of discussing, which is where he said where the roof and the wall connect. There are all different types of connections. There are, like he was mentioning, single strap, there's double strap, there's toenails, there's clips. And depending upon that connection, this is for joisted masonry buildings that have wood in the roof. That depending upon that connection determines how much hurricane protection the building has. The better the tie down, the higher the credit you get. So obviously a double strapped roof is less likely to blow away than if it's connected with clips. So the insurance company gives you a higher credit for that. Okay. And when you're talking about concrete buildings, then, or high-rise buildings, there's 2 types of credits that you can get. Number one, with concrete buildings, obviously the roof and the wall is all concrete, right? So that's the best type of credit you could get. That's the least likely thing that will blow away. But then there's 2 types of credits inside of that credit. It's called FBC equivalent or non-FBC equivalent. Non-FBC equivalent basically means that the roof hasn't been updated. Non-Florida building code. FBC equivalent means Florida building code, meaning it's up to the highest code. So obviously the roof, you want a FBC equivalent roof for concrete roofs, and you want the best tie down for joisted masonry roofs. So that's part of the credit. The second part of the credit is the one that gets you the highest amount of discount, which is the opening protection credit. Opening protection is basically whether or not you have high impact glass windows and doors, or if your windows are fully shuttered, right? So if you have a building where all of the windows are high impact glass, or they're fully shuttered, and all the doors are up to Miami-Dade code for hurricane protection, which basically means that they can withstand 120-mile-per-hour winds, then the likelihood of having a hurricane come in and blow out your windows and then blow off the roof is a lot less likely than if you didn't have that opening protection. So when you have those types of protections, you get a much higher discount off of your premium. So in essence, the mitigation inspection report, which is normally done by an engineer or a roofing contractor or a mitigation inspection company, tells the insurance company what type of hurricane protections your building has, and as a result, the carrier takes that information and plugs it into their system to help determine your insurance rates.
And one question yesterday, I had a client that came in and we were starting to talk about really insurance and hurricanes and the amount of monies that they should have, saved up in their bank accounts and all. And the board member said, you know what, the building's a little bit on the older side, and if we have a hurricane and all the windows get blown out, we'll end up getting free hurricane rated glass windows. And I went ahead and I said, do you have D&O insurance? Not D&O, but Law and Order insurance, Law and Ordinance insurance. Okay. So I think that's very important. If you can just touch briefly on that, because a lot of people feel
it's
that.
Funny. I mean, I do get that a lot also, where that people don't want to, people don't want to maintain their buildings, and they think that hurricanes just are going to come in and blow it all apart, and the insurance company is going to pay for everything. And the whole point of when I first started talking about why insurance rates are going through the roof is because half of that stuff is fraudulent anyway. So that's the problem. But ordinance and law is basically, if it is a legitimate claim, ordinance and law is giving you coverage to rebuild your building up to new building code. So to use the example that you were about the windows, right? So let's say you actually do have non-high impact glass windows. You just have the old regular windows, and there is a hurricane and it does blow out the window. Okay. So the window that you have in there is probably, let's just say it's worth $1,000. Hurricane comes in, blows it out. You meet your deductible. The insurance company, they don't give you a window, they give you money. So they stroke you a check for $1,000 and say, go ahead, replace your window. Okay. Now, when you go to replace your window and you go to a window company, they say, hey, listen, you can't replace your window with this old window. The new statutes, the new guidelines say, well, you have to use high impact glass windows. Now that window is $5,000. So if you aren't purchasing ordinance and law, which is the coverage that you need to give you that extra $4,000, you won't have enough money to replace it. So ordinance and law is pretty much, you must have, you would be absolutely crazy not to purchase that unless your building is brand new, because basically every code changes, or building code changes all the time. So at the end of the day, it gives you the money between the replacement cost of what you have and what you need to replace the building, or at the time of the loss.
So to bring it up to code.
To bring it up to code,
right.
Because you have to. You're not allowed to replace it any other way.
Right. All right.
Yeah, it's very important.
Yeah, and Jeff, I guess we've all been talking about our individual areas of expertise. Okay. And for those of you that don't know Jeff Solomon, who basically handles all of our marketing and also our Zoom calls, most communities, even though they may have a website, okay, and I know by Florida statute, any condos over 150 units, you need to have a website, but there are websites and then there are websites. And we used to have somebody in the group that actually had an app on their phone to correspond, to all the people very quickly. Obviously, you can't start knocking door to door. You can't start writing emails when you have problems. In your experience, okay, and your expertise, what should communities have in place? What should we be doing from a 21st century communication aspect?
Well, thank you for asking that. With regards to a website, when it comes to associations that are not required to have one, such as condos with 150 units or more within that one association, a website could be a valuable tool. Somebody mentioned earlier, I think it was Catherine, about having all of your contacts at hand or to call when needed. A website can also serve as that purpose. because even if internet goes down from your provider, you have your cell service, hopefully, in the area, and you can go onto your smart devices and pull up your association website. And on that association website, with regards to our topic today in hurricane prep, you have maybe your service providers on there, your recommended or service providers that you're using for your associations on that site. And all that you have to do is educate your association demographic, your unit owners and renters, that communityx.com has those particular contacts right on there. Should also have your association's disaster plan, your hurricane preparation checklist. What should you do if a storm is approaching? Maybe you have information on there on what is a watch, what is a warning, what is a tropical storm. Throw right in there too, severe thunderstorm watches, South Florida demographic. You have these many thunderstorms that come in that might be hurricane force winds for 5 minutes, until the front blows through. So there are so many things that that the website can provide, even if you're not required by statute to have it. It can severely raise the quality of lives of your board members and you as CAMs, because if you educate your community that you have this website with all these frequently asked questions on it, you might get a dozen less phone calls a day, which increases your productivity, and time is money. And
thanks,
one other thing, Mark, if I
Yeah.
may,
yeah, sure.
remember too, folks, you can raise your hand and ask any one of us a question. You can type it into the bottom. I have one question that came into me via email, because some of you on the attendee list, you know me, so you emailed me directly. Just one quick thing, and I'll turn it back to Mark here, is with regards to cloud storage. And I'm glad you asked that question, because another great tool with storm preparation is to have some kind of store some of your important documents, go digital, go as paperless as possible within your association, upload your docs to some kind of a document storage solution, so that if something does happen and the office gets flooded and paperwork gets destroyed or flooded or unusable, you have these items somewhere on the cloud that you can access wherever you are. And you can make it password protected, so only board members or authorized people see it, such as any legal documents with your association counsel or whatever it might be. But it's something that I could certainly talk you through and help you out with as well. And there are some great solutions out there. My advice is to keep as many things separate as possible. I'm not a fan personally of all-in-one software solutions, because it's like the stereos we used to buy in the 80s that had a turntable, a cassette deck, a radio all in one. If that unit went down, you lose the functionality of all of the features of that unit. So you want to have, in my opinion, a separate email type of platform, separate from this, separate from that. So if your website goes down for a period of time, you still have that email platform to communicate with your residents.
Okay. And Jeff, this is really not really on hurricanes, but I know that you handle all of our Zoom calls, and even for my clients, when we have budget meetings or we have annual meetings.
Right. I see a couple of names on the attendee list too.
Yeah, we always go ahead and we enlist you to handle it, because generally in Zoom calls, if you don't know what you're doing, it's very chaotic. Can you give us some pointers as far as how to conduct a good Zoom meeting?
Well, geez, we only have X amount of time left. I can go on forever here, but briefly, the platform that we're using right now, which is a Zoom plugin called the webinar feature. The webinar plugin is what I recommend with my clients when I run some of the board meetings, because only the panel, only the board is pretend we're an association board. We are the board members. You're only seeing and hearing the board members right now. And as long as you explain in the beginning of the meeting how your unit owners will communicate, because you don't want to shut out your unit owners. You don't want to do that. And you cover yourselves as a board and as an association and as a CAM by communicating at the onset of the meeting how your attendees will communicate and ask questions when things come up at the opportune time, of course. And just like we explained earlier, you can raise your hand or you can type it into the Q&A, for example. So we use this webinar platform, and it keeps everything much more streamlined and keeps it to the agenda without so many folks potentially going off topic.
Okay, great. Another question that came up was really for landscaping for Charles. Charles, you're gonna have to unmute yourself. Uh,
Okay, I'm on,
the question was, we're looking to go ahead and plant trees. What trees should we stay away from? What trees should we plant in light of hurricanes? And also what they call dirty trees.
well, that's a very good question, Mark, because, you know, the most important thing in any landscaping is starting off with trees planted in the right location for your property, depending on the sun exposure and so on. Look for trees that are categorized as Florida friendly. These type of trees generally have a better rooting system and will hold up much better in a hurricane.
You can give us some examples, some names, just so that people.
Some examples of Florida friendly trees would be your oak trees, or for Florida friendly. Anything that's native to Florida would be a good tree to install. There is, I just want to jump on one other aspect, you know, because we're talking about, you know, preventative maintenance. Two things with a storm that cause damage. The first thing is water. The second thing is wind. Now, we spoke about the wind and how it affects the trees. The biggest thing, that number one issue with any storm, is water. And as Adam and Joey will tell you, the water is what causes flooding and damage to your property. It is extremely important, and I have been going since March to around to all of my accounts, and with one of the, either a landscape committee person or a property manager, we're going around and we're inspecting all of your storm drains. If your storm drains are up to the grade, that means there's too much debris that has gone through the grade and is sitting on top. This is not going to allow water to flow freely into the storm system and then flow out away from your property. All of that area should be cleared so that water can flow clearly, and then you may need to get a company that has what's called a vac tank, and they come in and they just suck out all the debris from your storm drain, and which will make it the water flow much better.
Okay, great. Catherine, another question that came up was, we have a claim, and you're muted right now, so you can just unmute yourself when you get a chance. We have a claim, and we have damages. Okay, what do we do? When we call you up, do you have a team of people that can come out with various disciplines? Do we get our own contractors? You know, how does that whole thing work? Because, you know, when this happens, it's like on spur of the moment, all of a sudden we got this problem and we have to give you a call.
Right. So it's actually a good question. I do arrive with a team of people depending on the size of the property. However, Brandon did say that South Florida is the fraud capital. So one thing is to really be aware of contractors and companies that will come out and try to have you sign contracts and you don't know them or you do not have any reference of them. Usually a public adjuster that's worked with many different contractors has vetted, you know, restoration companies, vetted roofing companies that they can recommend over to you. So definitely, like, they will provide you a team of people if needed, just like we have this community association resource group where we vetted each other. It's all because there's so many contractors and, you know, people out there that are not really looking out for your best intention. But when you do, you know, contact myself, you know, I have a team of professionals that will come out, scope the property, make sure we take a look and inspect all the damages, you know, whatever equipment is needed, depending on how big the property is, you know, that will be supplied as well. So it's a big team.
I also have one more thing to add to Catherine's statement, if you don't mind.
Sure.
When it comes to contractors, if they say, well, we happen to be in the area, that's a huge red flag. If they offer a large discount, but don't state like how much the job is going to cost, oh, we can do everything for, you know, 50% less than the other guys, you know, just be aware of that. Don't pay anything in full. ask for license and proof of insurance. I mean,
Yep,
out on the roads in a storm, you got to have your license information in all the vehicles with you. So just keep your eyes out for, you know, fraud like that as well.
Yeah, I will tell you, I know that in various communities, when we had storms, I mean, you had roofers coming from out of state just to go
Yeah.
ahead and do some work. And the problem is that when they leave and then you have a warranty issue, it's like you're singing, you know, whistling Dixie to go ahead and to get them back in. I mean, Joey, your company has been around for how long?
Sorry, we've been here 1989, so 31 going on 32 years.
Oh, okay, so you're not going anyplace. And you know, and that's very important. You know, again, when we have some background music noise.
Yeah, it's probably my office. I'm sorry.
You know, it's a situation that whenever I talk to my clients and we have a large project to be done, there a lot of times boards are looking only at price. And you know, the old adage is you get what you pay for. If it looks too good, it's probably not good. It's a situation you have to go ahead and go by recommendation. You have to go by history of the company that they've been around, because if they've been around for 30 years, you know they're doing something right when they're standing behind their product. And really everybody here on the panel, you know, have been around for a while. And to me, it's key to go ahead when you have a warranty issue, when you have a problem down the road, that's really what you're paying for. You know, a lot of times, and I'm going to jump in really with Brandon in insurance, you know, every broker, and Brandon, correct me, you know, if I'm wrong, but every insurance broker, when they go out to bid, if they bid my condominium and you give them the same exact specs, okay, you'll generally get the same price from that individual underwriter. Okay, to me, where a good insurance broker really shines is not just to get you the best price, but to service you afterwards, and the relationships that an individual broker has with the underwriters. And I know, I think there's certain ratings, if I'm not mistaken, that.
I mean, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I mean, the point that you're making is like what everyone always thinks, that the prices are the same for everybody. And in theory, that should be the case, right? If each individual agent submits the same underwriting information to the same underwriter, then in essence, the premium should come back exactly the same. But in reality, the really large agencies try to make it sound like, well, we're the biggest agency, we're national, all this other stuff. That's why we have so much power. In reality, that really isn't the case. In reality, the way that you should determine who you want to work with respect to insurance, and specifically with an agent, is who has the best ideas on how to sell your risk to the insurance company, and then what services the insurance agent and the agency are going to do to help your unit owners. Just for instance, you know, there was an account that I was working on recently, and you know, the current agent presented their proposal, and I got called in to review the proposal, you know, 2 weeks before. And when I sat down with the property, I said, hey, listen, what type of updates have you done? What have you done for your roofing? What electrical updates? What plumbing updates? What risk management tools do you have? What does anyone know how to read a certificate of insurance? Has anyone reviewed your the insurance sections of all your major contracts? Has your insurance agent walked the property? Do you have a plan in place for a loss? All of those things are important factors that you need to consider when you're hiring somebody, because that is what is needed to sell the insurance company and why the risk is good. And in that specific example, the agent didn't do any of that stuff. And I went back and collected all that information, and we were able to lower their premium by almost 15%. And we went to the same insurance company. So that's a really important factor. And the service that you get throughout the year and the education that you give the unit owners, because ultimately the boards, has to listen to the unit owners or voted in by unit owners. Those are all really huge factors in determining who you should really work with. I know everyone says service is the most important thing, but in reality, service and relationship really is the most important thing, because if you don't have a good personal relationship with the person that makes the decision from the insurance company side, I mean, you could get any range of numbers. So it's just very important that the person that you work with just knows what they're doing and has your best interests in mind. And the majority of agents out there, they just sell on price at all time, and they end up screwing the association over. I don't know if that's where you're going at, but that's the truth. Someone asked a question on here, by the way. Sorry to interrupt, but I didn't know, it said to answer live, but I didn't know how to answer, so I typed it in. But just quickly, the question was something about when is your deductible paid in the event of a loss, because we were talking about hurricane deductibles.
Right.
And I just wanted to make sure everyone understands that your deductible isn't actually paid. Your deductible is deducted off of the payment that they pay you, right? So if you have a claim for 100,000 and your deductible is 50,000, you don't pay 50,000. They take the 100,000 and they deduct 50,000.
Right.
And that's why a line of credit is so important, because if something costs 100,000 to replace and they're only going to give you 50, you need the other 50 to replace what you need. So I just want to answer L. Weather's question.
Right. Okay, great.
Mark, I want to go back. I want to go back for a second on, we're talking about, contractors that come in and, that may not be reputable or this, that, and the other thing. One thing in my business that we hone on big is I have my business card attached behind as the background here. And on the top of it, you can see the state certification number is 033691. So in the roofing world, in most contractors within the state, that is the sequential order number. Okay, so the first roofer in Florida was number 1, 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth. So you get to 33,691, which is our license number. That number is from 1989. So in the roofing business now, I'm seeing numbers even up till the 1.6 million number. So that means obviously there's been 1.6 million roofers in Florida over the last 35 years. Why is this important? Because there are so many companies out here that say they've been in business 25, 30 years, and their license numbers in the 1.2, 1.3 million range. What does that mean to us? That means that they have gone out of business under a corporation, opened up under a different corporation. Why did they do that? Nobody knows, but I can tell you one thing. That warranty that they said was in play for 10 years, if they went out of business and opened up under another corporation, that warranty is gone. And I think that's very important when you're looking at a company that says we've been servicing Broward and Dade County for 25 years. Well, have you really been, or have you been fumbling to open up corporation after corporation to hide from the people that you said that you were going to warranty back when you said you were going to warranty?
So it's very true, because I will tell you, a lot of times with property management companies, it's the same person just opening up a new name because
Correct.
they've had such bad publicity, bad reviews on Google, and they get to a point that they say, you know what, it's just easier if I just open up a new corporation.
Yeah, that's
So
great
it's
information.
true. That's really a valid point.
Mark, I have a question for you.
Okay.
You're not off the hook here. You're not off the hook here.
I was hoping that I would
We have
get
a
off
question
the
that came in here, another one via text. And thank you for all of you sending in the questions. Why should they heard that you should call your accountant before the hurricane. Why should you call your association accountant before a hurricane? What can you do to prep them?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Somebody must have been reading one of my articles.
Yeah.
I do condominium and homeowner association and condo hotel accounting only. And just like everybody here, everybody specializes. Whether you have an attorney, you have attorneys that do litigation work, they do collection work, and they do condo association work. So, the people that do aviation law really don't know anything. They have no clue about condominium law. Bankers, Center State, now it's going to be South State. They handle obviously all different type of loans, but they specialize in associations. Okay, Charles from GRC, or Legacy Insurance, they can handle anything, but their specialty is associations, and that's why they're in this group. The same thing really with me. I practiced a long, long time ago, going back probably 40 years ago, with a company called Lavathol and Horwath. They were an international accounting firm. They probably were about the 9th largest in the world. And they were generalists. But even within that firm, everybody specialized, in their own field. And going back 20 years ago, basically I specialized in association accounting. It's a very niche business. I relate it basically to my son-in-law's a urologist in Coral Springs. If I call him up and I ask him that I have a problem with my toe, he says, Mark, I can bring out my books, from medical school. I can probably give you a basic answer, but my specialty is urology. And if you need if you need something for heart, you go to a cardiologist. The eyes, you go to an ophthalmologist. Accountants, you go to people that specialize in it, and it's a very small field basically. And we do monthly accounting. We collect the bills, we pay the bill, we pay the bills, we collect the monies, we set up separate ledgers for special assessments, and we give financial statements at the end of the month. So, I'm happy that you brought that up, just so I can put a little plug for myself, because I was talking about everybody else in the group here. But a lot of times I can be almost the quarterback. I'm not a property manager, but obviously going ahead and being in the field for 20 years or so, people, my clients call me up basically for recommendations, and usually I'll reach out to my other clients and say, do you like XYZ? Okay, or who do you like for landscaping, or who do you like for roofing, or we have a problem with flooding, who can you recommend? And we do it because I hear the good, the bad, and the ugly. And that's really what we're all about. I mean, we live and breathe associations. A friend of mine gave me a little button that said, I speak condo. And that's basically what we all do over here. We all specialize really in our particular field as it relates to association life. And just, I know you've been watching me going ahead and sipping on tea, okay, but basically what I was told is that you have to really just go ahead and blow, in the cup to make like it's very hot, and then you can have whatever liquor you want in there. So even though it says tea, I'll leave that to your imagination. But again,
with a touch of rum. Come on, tell the truth. It's 5 o'clock.
But again, it's important that you go to people or companies that specialize in association life. It makes a world of difference. There's many good accountants out there. But that doesn't mean that they know a particular field, whether it's condominiums, whether it's restaurants, whether it's gas stations, and so forth. Just like attorneys, we all specialize basically. Our major forte is association life. So I thank you for that. Do we have any other questions? I'm just looking down over here. Yes.
I want to mention something real quick. There are nobody asking questions right now. We're about 3 minutes before our advertised time of how long we'll be on here, but we can stay on longer and answer any questions. If you have any, type them in or raise your hands. And also a quick note, and then I'll shut up. when the webinar ends, there will be a very brief survey. And on that survey, you could also mention on there if you'd like contact from anybody here today, you can note it on that survey. We'll be sure everybody here gets it.
Right.
Thank you.
Right now, because I don't see any further questions at this point in time.
Not right
but
now.
Our panelists, okay, is there anything that I didn't bring up or mention that you would like to discuss, talk about? Just raise your hand and we'll go one by one, basically.
I did want to say one thing.
Brandon, you can't raise your hand. I'm sorry. No, you're out of order.
No, I just
Go
want to
ahead.
say one thing that Charles brought up, like was getting to, and I wanted to chime in on about trimming the trees and everything like that, and debris removal on insurance policies. You know, if you don't go ahead and trim your trees and get all of everything nice in nice order, it's more likely that during a storm, your trees are going to fall down, right? And most insureds, most associations think that if a tree falls down on the property, that they have coverage to remove that debris, but that is not the case. Debris removal is a coverage that you should have on your policy, but the insurance companies only pay for the cost to remove the debris if the tree or the shrub falls in and damages something that you're insuring. So if a tree falls down and hits a building, then the insurance company will pay to fix the building and remove the debris and remove the tree. But if a tree falls down onto the ground and just hits, the ground, they will not pay for that. And in Hurricane Irma, there was hundreds and hundreds of $1,000s of worth of debris removal that wasn't paid for because those trees or shrubs didn't damage the property. So it's really important that you get that stuff trimmed up so that it's less likely to fall down.
Okay, great.
I thought that would be important.
Yeah, absolutely. Craig, there was one quick question from somebody. I see that you're muted. I don't know if you stepped away yet.
No, I'm back.
Yeah, there
Thank
you are.
Yes.
Craig, the question was, they said professional building services. What services other than janitorial do you provide?
Sure. We provide, as spoken, janitorial and porter service. We also have access to painters, light maintenance, window cleaning, total floor care, carpets, hard floor care, etc., and also some painting services as well.
Oh, great. Okay, so it's a one-stop shop when they give you a call.
Yes, we like to think so.
Oh, okay, terrific. Let me just mention a few people that are in the group that were not able to join because they had prior commitments. We have a cable consultant company, and it's called Community Cable Consultants. So that if you have cable in your association and you know that it's coming up soon, or you don't think that you're getting the right pricing or the right equipment or the right services, they're really the ones to call. And you can look up on our website, which is basically CARG, C-A-R-G, the number 4, and then help, HELP.org, or contact one of us and we can put you in touch with really anybody here, including the cable consultant. We have a pool service company that handles the Tri-County area, and they do everything from routine pool service to repairs to diamond writing and so on and so forth. And then we also have a paving, seal coating, and paver company that is just a delight to work with. His name is Mark Miram. And again, you can really go ahead and research and look at all of our phone numbers and contact information through the site, CARG, C-A-R-G, the number 4, help, HELP.org. And after that survey, we'll be responding back to you and we'll give you that contact information. With that, I know we're running just a little bit over. Is there anybody else on the panel that wants to go ahead and say any other few words, whether it's hurricanes or just your general services? I think we basically covered most of that. Jeff, do you see any other questions that I might be missing?
No other questions, and just remember at the end here, we'll end it in just a moment. There's a brief survey, and if you have any further questions or desire some contact about how everybody here may be able to help or just need some consultation, brief survey, promise it won't take you that long.
Yeah, and that's something that's important, you know, again, if you call any of us, we're all willing just to talk to you. There's no cost or obligation, you know, for that initial consultation or discussion. Hopefully you like what we have to say and you'll give us a call. That's basically about it. I really do appreciate everybody joining us and spending the last hour and 20 minutes with us. We do these educational seminars definitely on a monthly basis, so please look out for our e-blasts and basically stay safe, and we appreciate again that you spent time with us. Thank you again.
Thank you, everybody.